Has anyone else ever felt their entire life crumble in an instant? I, 48M, am living that nightmare right now, and I desperately need advice on how to move forward. 3 weeks. That's all the time that was left until what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My wedding to my fiancée, 35 farads. We had been planning this day for months, envisioning our perfect future together. But in a cruel twist of fate, I've discovered that it was all built on lies. It started last night when I was awakened by the buzz of my fiancée's phone. A message from one of her friends about her recent bachelorette party. I know I shouldn't have, but curiosity got the better of me. I found myself doing something I never thought I'd do, snooping through her messages and social media. What I found shattered my world. My fiancée didn't just have a wild night of drinking and dancing. She went far beyond that. According to the messages between her and her friends, she performed sexual acts with a stripper and ended up going home with another man that night. The casual way they discussed it in their group chat made my stomach churn. I sat there, staring at the phone screen, feeling like I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, trying to process what I was seeing. This woman I thought I knew, the one I was ready to spend the rest of my life with, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. As the shock began to wear off, a tidal wave of emotions hit me. Anger, hurt, disgust, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. I wanted to wake her up right then and confront her, but I couldn't bring myself to look at her. The thought of her lying next to me, pretending everything was fine, made me physically ill. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just lay there, replaying every moment of our relationship in my head, wondering if it had all been a lie. Had she done this before? How could she do this so close to our wedding day? The questions were endless, and each one felt like a knife twisting in my gut. When morning came, I was a mess. I hadn't slept, I felt sick to my stomach, and my head was pounding. My fiancée woke up, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. She kissed me good morning and started getting ready for work, as if it was just another day. I couldn't bear to look at her or speak to her. I mumbled something about not feeling well and stayed in bed. As soon as she left for work, I sprang into action. I don't know if it was the right thing to do, but I couldn't stand being in that apartment for another minute. I started packing a bag, throwing in clothes and essentials without much thought. My hands were shaking, and I kept having to stop to catch my breath. The reality of what I was doing, leaving my fiancé and our shared life, kept hitting me in waves. I called the wedding venue and canceled everything. The person on the other end of the line sounded confused and tried to ask questions, but I cut them off. I couldn't bear to explain. I just told them to cancel it all and that I'd deal with any fees later. Next, I called my business partner. I told him I needed to take some time off, effective immediately. He could tell something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. I just said I had a family emergency and needed to step away for a while. He agreed to cover for me, sounding worried, but not pushing for details. As I was about to leave, I realized I needed to do one more thing. I wrote a short note. I know what happened at your bachelorette party. The wedding is off. Don't try to contact me. I left it on the kitchen counter where she would see it. It felt cold and abrupt, but I couldn't think of what else to say. How do you sum up the end of a relationship, the shattering of trust, in a few words? With my bag packed and the note left behind, I walked out of our apartment. The finality of closing that door behind me hit me hard. This was the place where we had built our life together, made plans for our future. And now I was walking away from it all. I got in my car and just started driving. I had no destination in mind. I just knew I needed to get away. As I drove, the emotions I had been holding back started to surface. Tears blurred my vision, and I had to pull over to the side of the road. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, as sobs racked my body. The pain I felt was physical, like something was tearing me apart from the inside. After what felt like hours, I managed to calm down enough to keep driving. I ended up at a hotel about 100 miles from our city. It was a nondescript place, the kind of hotel where people go when they don't want to be found. That suited me just fine. I checked in, barely registering the concerned look the receptionist gave me. I must have looked a mess, rumpled clothes, red eyes, probably reeking of despair. But I didn't care. I just wanted to hide away from the world. Once in the room, I collapsed on the bed. The events of the last 24 hours kept replaying in my mind. The shock of discovering her infidelity, the pain of betrayal, the surreal feeling of walking out on my life. It was all too much to process. I reached for my phone, thinking I should let someone know where I was. But as I looked at the screen, I saw dozens of missed calls and messages. From her family, from our friends. Word had obviously gotten out. I couldn't face any of them right now. I turned off my phone and tossed it aside. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling of the unfamiliar hotel room, the reality of my situation started to sink in. I had just walked away from my entire life. The woman I loved, our home, our future plans, all gone in an instant. The wedding we had spent months planning was now canceled. Our friends and family would be shocked, confused, demanding explanations. And what about my work? I had built a successful business with my partner, but could I go back to that now? The thought of facing colleagues and clients, pretending everything was fine, seemed impossible. Then there were the practical considerations. Most of my things were still at our apartment. We had joint accounts, shared bills. Untangling our lives would be a nightmare. And the emotional toll. How do you even begin to process this kind of betrayal? As these thoughts swirled in my mind, I felt a deep, crushing loneliness. For years, my fiancé had been my rock, my confidant, the person I turned to in times of crisis. Now, faced with the biggest crisis of my life, I couldn't turn to her. The person who had always been there to comfort me was the very source of my pain. I thought about calling my parents, but I couldn't bear the thought of disappointing them. They had been so excited about the wedding, so happy that I had finally found someone to settle down with. How could I tell them it was all over? As the day wore on, I alternated between fits of anger and bouts of deep sadness. One moment I wanted to confront her, to demand answers, to make her feel the pain she had caused me. The next, I just wanted to curl up and disappear. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I just lay there, replaying every moment of our relationship in my mind. Had there been signs I had missed? Had she been unhappy? Was I not enough for her? The questions were endless, and each one felt like a knife twisting in my gut. As night fell, I found myself reaching for the minibar. I knew it wasn't a good idea, but I desperately wanted to numb the pain, to quiet the thoughts racing through my mind. As I sat there, drinking alone in a dark hotel room, I couldn't help but think about how different this night was supposed to be. Instead of celebrating my upcoming wedding with friends and family, I was hiding from the world, trying to drink away the memory of my fiancé's betrayal. The alcohol didn't help. If anything, it made the pain more acute, the sense of loss more profound. I found myself looking at old photos on my phone, torturing myself with images of happier times. Her smile, the way she looked at me, had it all been a lie? How could the woman in these photos, the one who had promised to love me forever, have done this? As the night wore on, my thoughts turned darker. What was I going to do now? At 48, I had thought I had finally found the person I would spend the rest of my life with. Now, I was facing a future alone. The thought was terrifying. Would I ever be able to trust someone again? Could I open myself up to love, knowing the pain it could bring? And what about children? We had talked about starting a family soon after the wedding. Now, that dream seemed impossibly far away. At my age, would I ever have the chance to be a father? The weight of these thoughts was crushing. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a sea of despair. The future I had envisioned, the life we had planned together, it was all slipping away, and I felt powerless to stop it. As dawn broke, I was still awake, my mind still churning. The harsh light of day brought no clarity, no relief from the pain. If anything, it made everything feel more real, more final. I knew I couldn't stay in this hotel room forever. Sooner or later, I would have to face the world, deal with the fallout of my decision. but the thought of it was overwhelming. How do you even begin to rebuild your life when everything you thought you knew has been shattered? As I sat there, contemplating my next move, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from my business partner. "Hey, I'm worried about you. Whatever's going on, I'm here if you need me. Take all the time you need. I've got things covered at work. Just let me know you're okay." His message was like a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't completely alone in this. I hadn't lost everything. I still had my work, my business partner, my friends. Maybe, with their support, I could find a way through this. With shaking hands, I picked up my phone and typed out a reply. "I'm okay. Can't talk about it yet. Thank you for understanding." It wasn't much, but it was a start. A small step towards facing the reality of my situation. As I hit send, I realized I had a decision to make. I could stay here, hiding from the world, drowning in my pain. Or I could face this head-on, deal with the fallout, and try to move forward. I didn't know if I was strong enough. The pain was still raw, the betrayal still fresh. But I knew I couldn't stay in this limbo forever. Sooner or later, I would have to face my fiancé, our families, our friends. I would have to explain why I had run, why our wedding was off. The thought was terrifying, but also somehow liberating. For the first time since I had discovered her infidelity, I felt a glimmer of something other than pain. It wasn't hope, not yet, but maybe it was the first step towards it. I got up, showered, and packed my bag. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay here. As I checked out of the hotel, I felt like I was taking the first step on a long, difficult journey. A journey towards healing, towards rebuilding my life. I didn't know what the future held. The pain was still there, a constant ache in my chest. But as I got in my car and started driving, I felt a sense of determination growing. I had survived the initial shock, the crushing pain of betrayal. Now, it was time to figure out what came next. As I drove, I realized I had more questions than answers. Should I confront her? Should I just disappear from her life completely? How would I explain this to our families, our friends? What about our shared life, our apartment, our accounts, our future plans? These questions swirled in my mind, each one bringing a fresh wave of pain and uncertainty. But for the first time since I had discovered her betrayal, I felt like I might be able to face them. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. I didn't know where this road would lead me, but I knew I had to keep moving forward, one painful step at a time. Because the alternative, staying stuck in that moment of betrayal, was unthinkable. As I drove towards an uncertain future, I found myself hoping that somewhere down this road, I might find a way to heal, to trust again, to build a new life for myself. It seemed impossible now, but I had to believe it was possible, because right now, that hope, however faint, was all I had left. Update 1. It's been 48 hours since my last post, and I feel like I've aged years in this short time. Thank you all for your advice and support. A lot has happened, so here's an update. Yesterday afternoon, I finally answered one of my fiancée's calls. Her voice was broken, pleading for a chance to explain. Despite the anger and pain churning inside me, I agreed to listen. Her explanation was a jumble of excuses. She was drunk. Her friends encouraged her. She felt pressured to have one last wild night before settling down. But the words that cut deepest were, "I wanted to feel free one last time before committing to you forever." I listened in silence, each word like a knife twisting in my gut. When she finished, I asked her one question. "Does your family know?" She broke down, admitting she hadn't told anyone the real reason for my disappearance. With a calmness that surprised even me, I told her, "The wedding is off. Don't contact me again." Then I hung up. The floodgates opened after that call. My phone exploded with messages and calls from her family, our friends, my family. It seems she had finally told them about my disappearance. My best friend left a voicemail. "Man, where are you? We're all worried sick." My parent message was filled with confusion and concern. "Honey, what's going on? Can't you two work this out?" I couldn't bring myself to explain the truth to them yet. The thought of recounting her betrayal, of seeing the pity in their eyes, was too much to bear. As the day wore on, the messages from her became increasingly desperate. She begged for forgiveness, promised it would never happen again, said she'd do anything to make it right. Her sister even called, trying to mediate, suggesting we should at least talk face to face. But with each message, each call, I felt my resolve strengthen. The initial shock and pain were giving way to a cold, hard certainty. There was no going back from this. Last night, in a moment of weakness, I found myself looking at our engagement photos. The woman smiling back at me in those pictures. Was she real? Or just a facade? The doubt and mistrust are poisoning even my happiest memories. This morning, I woke up to a novel-length email from her. She's told her parents the truth, she says. She's willing to go to couples therapy, to do whatever it takes to rebuild my trust. She even suggested I could get even, if that would make things right. The very idea made me sick. I don't want revenge. I don't want to hurt her back. I just want. I don't even know what I want anymore. Part of me, a small, weak part, wants to believe her, wants to think we could somehow move past this. But then I remember the casual way she discussed her infidelity with her friends, and that hope dies. I'm still at the hotel, still hiding from the world, but I know I can't stay here forever. Sooner or later, I'll have to face reality, cancel the wedding vendors, move out of our apartment, explain to our friends and family why there won't be a wedding. The thought of it all is overwhelming. How do you untangle a life you've spent years building together? How do you face the pitying looks, the whispered conversations that will stop when you enter a room? I'm torn between wanting to disappear completely and wanting to stand my ground. Part of me wants to ghost her entirely, to vanish from her life as completely as my trust in her has vanished. But another part wants to confront her, to make her face what she's done, to let her see the pain she's caused. I know I need to make decisions soon, about the apartment, about our shared accounts, about all the minutiae of our intertwined lives. But right now, even the smallest decision feels impossible. My business partner called again today. He's worried, says I can take all the time I need, but that he's there if I want to talk. His concern was a reminder that I'm not entirely alone in this, that there are still people in my life I can trust. As I sit here, trying to figure out my next move, I'm struck by how quickly life can change. A week ago, I was happily planning my wedding. Now, I'm hiding in a hotel room, my entire future uncertain. I keep asking myself, will I ever be able to trust again? At my age, is this my last chance at love and starting a family? The fear of facing life alone is almost as overwhelming as the pain of betrayal. But then I remember how it felt to read those messages, to realize the depth of her betrayal, and I know I can't go back. The trust is broken, shattered beyond repair. So now I have to figure out how to move forward, how to rebuild my life from the ashes of what we had. It feels impossible right now, but I know I have to try. To those who offered advice on my last post, thank you. Your words have been a lifeline in my darkest moments. I'm not okay, not by a long shot, but I'm still here, still fighting. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever be able to open my heart again. But I know I can't stay in this limbo forever. It's time to start making decisions, time to start rebuilding. I'll update again when I can. For now, I just need to find the strength to take the next step, whatever that may be. Update 2. It's been a week since my last update, and my life has taken an unexpected turn. I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Your words have been a lifeline during this difficult time. My best friend and business partner, 50M, tracked me down at the hotel. He took one look at me, unshaven, reeking of cheap whiskey, and said, "Pack your bags. We're getting out of here." Within an hour, we were on a plane to a small coastal town in Europe. He had arranged a month-long vacation for both of us, hiring temporary help to manage our business in our absence. We're staying in a small villa overlooking the sea. The sound of waves has become a soothing backdrop to my tumultuous thoughts. My friend has been incredible, giving me space when needed, but also there to talk when the silence became too much. One night, as we watched the sunset, he asked, "What do you want your life to look like a year from now?" I realized I hadn't thought that far ahead. His question forced me to start imagining a life beyond the betrayal. We've been exploring the town, trying local cuisines, visiting museums, and even attempting to learn the local language. It's been a welcome distraction from thoughts of my ex-fiancée and the life I left behind. I finally checked my phone yesterday. Surprisingly, there were no recent messages from her. I did find a long email from her sister, apologizing for her initial attempt to mediate and expressing shock at her sister's actions. She said their family supports my decision to end the relationship. It was unexpectedly comforting. I sent my family a brief message explaining that I needed time away to deal with a personal crisis, promising to explain everything when I return. They seem worried but understanding. This trip has given me a chance to reflect on my life and choices. I've realized that somewhere along the way, I lost sight of myself. I was so focused on building a future with her that I neglected my own personal growth. I've started journaling and running along the beach every morning. The physical exertion helps clear my head, and I'm starting to feel stronger, both physically and mentally. One thing that's become clear is that I had put my entire future in the hands of this relationship. Now, I'm forced to reimagine my future, and it's both terrifying and exhilarating. I've been thinking a lot about my career. There are projects and ideas I've been putting off, afraid to take risks. Now, I'm starting to think, why not? What do I have to lose? We've had some preliminary discussions about expanding our business. My friend's enthusiasm is contagious, and for the first time in weeks, I'm feeling a spark of excitement about the future. I've also been reconsidering my personal goals. The idea of starting a family was so tied to my relationship with my ex-fiancée that I never considered other possibilities. Now, I'm starting to think about adoption or even becoming a foster parent. Of course, it's not all positive. There are still moments when the pain hits me like a tidal wave. Sometimes, I'll see a couple on the beach, and it'll trigger a memory of her. The betrayal still stings, and I know I have a long way to go before I can trust someone again. But being here, away from the reminders of our life together, is helping. I'm starting to see myself as an individual again, not just half of a couple. I'm rediscovering old interests and exploring new ones. I've even started learning to cook, much to my friend's amusement. One of the most significant realizations I've had is about the nature of love and relationships. I had put my ex-fiancée on a pedestal, thinking our love was perfect. Now, I understand that no relationship is perfect, and that's okay. It's not about finding someone who will never hurt you, but about finding someone who will stand by you through the hurts and the joys. I'm not ready to think about dating again. The very idea makes me feel sick. But I'm starting to believe that someday I might be open to love again. Not now, not soon, but someday. For now, I'm focused on healing and rediscovering myself. I'm learning to enjoy my own company, to find fulfillment in my own achievements and growth. It's a slow process, with plenty of setbacks, but I'm making progress. As for the practical aspects, I've decided to deal with them when I return. My friend has offered to help me move out of the apartment I shared with my ex-fiancée. We've also discussed the possibility of me staying at his place for a while until I figure out my next steps. I know I'll have to face her eventually. The thought still fills me with dread, but I'm starting to feel strong enough to handle it. I'm not the same man who ran away in the middle of the night. I'm stronger now, more sure of myself and what I want. This vacation has been a turning point for me. It's given me the space and time I needed to start healing, to start imagining a future beyond the pain of betrayal. I'm not okay yet, but for the first time since this all happened, I believe that I will be. To those going through similar situations, hang in there, it gets better. The pain doesn't disappear overnight, but it does get more manageable. Focus on yourself, surround yourself with supportive people, and don't be afraid to reimagine your future. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm starting to look forward to finding out. Thank you all for your support and advice. It's meant more than you know. I'll update again when I return home and face the realities I left behind. Until then, I'm going to focus on healing, growing, and rediscovering joy in my life. Update 3. It's been a week since I returned home, and I wanted to give you all a final update on my situation. Coming back was intense. The city feels both familiar and strange, with memories of my ex-fiancée around every corner. But I'm viewing them through new eyes now. The day after I returned, I met with my ex-fiancée to talk. Her sister arranged the meeting at a quiet cafe. I was nervous, but surprisingly calm. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair unkempt. She apologized profusely, begging for another chance. I listened quietly, then simply said, "I forgive you, but I can't be with you. The trust is gone, and without trust, we have nothing." It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I realized I had needed this closure as much as she did. The next few days were a whirlwind. My best friend helped me move out of our shared apartment. It was painful, sorting through the remnants of our life together, but also cathartic. I've moved into a small apartment across town. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine. A clean slate. Telling our friends and family was difficult. There were a lot of shocked faces and questions, but overall, people have been supportive. My parents, once they got over their initial disappointment, have been my rocks. Work has been a welcome distraction. My business partner and I have thrown ourselves into those expansion plans we discussed on our trip. It's exciting to be challenged, to be building something new. As for my personal life, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm not ready to date yet, and I'm okay with that. I'm focusing on rebuilding my life, rediscovering old passions, and exploring new ones. I've joined a local hiking group and signed up for cooking classes. Small steps, but they feel good. There are still tough moments. Nights when the loneliness feels overwhelming, when I question my decisions. But these moments are becoming less frequent, less intense. I'm learning to sit with these feelings, to acknowledge them without being consumed by them. One unexpected outcome of all this has been a shift in my priorities. I've realized how much I'd been living for the future, always planning for someday. Now, I'm trying to live more in the present. Last weekend, I went skydiving for the first time. The rush of free fall was terrifying and exhilarating, a bit like life itself right now. I've also been thinking a lot about family. The dream of having children isn't dead, just changed. I've started looking into adoption and fostering. It's early days, but it feels right. To those who are going through similar situations, it gets better. The pain doesn't disappear overnight, but it does fade. Focus on yourself. Rediscover who you are outside of your relationship. Surround yourself with people who support you. And don't be afraid to imagine a different future than the one you had planned. I won't pretend it's been easy. There have been dark days, moments when I've questioned everything. But I can honestly say that I'm happier now than I was a month ago. I'm excited about my future in a way I haven't been in years. My ex-fiancée's betrayal shattered the life I thought I was going to have. But in rebuilding, I've created something stronger, something truer to who I really am. It's not the life I expected, but I'm starting to think it might be even better. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Your support and advice have meant more than you know. This will be my final update. It's time to close this chapter and focus on the next one. To anyone out there facing a similar situation, hang in there. You're stronger than you know. And there's a whole life waiting for you on the other side of this pain. It may not be the life you planned, but it can still be beautiful. Here's to new beginnings, to second chances, and to the unexpected joys life can bring. Thank you, and goodbye.